Sikkim 365 and Baylor Plus have teamed up to bring Baylor fans the ultimate content bundle. You can sign up now for $17.99 a month, a $5 monthly savings, and get instant access to all premium content on both websites. For more information, visit either sikkim365.com or baylorplus.com today. What's up, Baylor family? Welcome into another episode of Inside Baylor Sports, the official daily podcast of Baylor Athletics. Grace and I are excited for this special episode today as we welcome in former Baylor linebacker Eddie Lackey, who was just honored over the weekend for his major contribution to Baylor's 2013 Big 12 championship team, and obviously the 2014 as well. Eddie was not there in 2014, but his career at Baylor, and forgive me for reading all these stats. I'm about to go through them for 2 years.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
Yeah, so 212 tackles, 24 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks, 7 interceptions, 3 of those interceptions returned for touchdowns, second team All-Big 12 in 2012, unanimous first team All-Big 12 in 2013. Incredible numbers, but I have to ask, you have one play that stands out above the rest.
Yeah. Do I have a play?
Do you have one? I don't. But do you?
You know, I've got a few, but I'll let you start.
Oh man. Well, I mean, it has to be a pick six. Okay. Well, the interception. It was the interception, the pick six against TCU in 13, right? That sealed basically. It didn't end the game, but it was a major point at the end of the game.
Sure.
That one stands out, but I'm sure you have one that's better than that.
I always come back to the blackout against Oklahoma Thursday night. Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard Baylor Nation as loud as it got after had an interception right there before half, and then Antoine goes down and scores a touchdown after that. So I think just that play, it was a pivotal play in the game, and it was such a hyped up game, obviously, and the blackout and removing the tarp and all of those things. But I think if I had to choose one, it's tough not to talk about like a pick six or something, but I loved how loud the crowd got, how excited the sideline was, and then to just turn that into points. You know, our offense quickly scored right after that. So that was to me something that I think about a lot. I always think about that play.
Yeah. It was a heck of a catch too. It wasn't an easy catch. It was kind of like going against your body a little bit and sliding. So that was a big play, and then obviously led to the touchdown. Was that the loudest you've ever seen a game at whether it's at McLean Stadium or obviously, before that, was that the loudest you've ever heard it?
100%. Yeah. I don't know how. Honestly, it was so loud. You couldn't talk on the sideline still, and not that I wanted to talk to anybody. I was just like, we were all just jumping up and down. Yeah. But it was just, there's no better way to put it than just electric. Like, it just exploded. And I think it was building up to that, something that I know that we had scored just before that, and they had kicked it off to us. And I think it was the first play after that. It was 1st and 10. And, I think the crowd was kind of like, it was kind of a boring start to the game. I think I think
it was 5-3.
I always say,
it
was like a soccer score. So it was like, what, this isn't living up to the hype just yet, at least of like the high powered, fast flying offense, and just a lot of points. And I think we score, which got the crowd going, and then that happened, knowing that we were pretty close to being in the red zone already, and I think it was under a minute left in the half that was left. I think just all of that combined together with the hype of removing the tarp and the first blackout at Baylor ever, is like, I think people are waiting for something to just erupt about, and I was honored that it was that moment. I feel like I've had so many people come up and tell me, like, you realize I've never heard Baylor as loud as they've, at any game I've ever been to, than that moment that you had that pick against Oklahoma in 2013. So I definitely enjoyed that moment.
Yeah, that was, I mean, a huge moment, and really kind of, we talked about this the other day. Grace and I went through all the top games from that era, 2013, 2014, and we
Yeah.
both mentioned the environment, and that was just, it kind of set the bar for Baylor games, right? Like, okay, if you're ever
Yeah.
going to exceed that atmosphere, it's going to be really tough because it was a perfect storm of everything, and then the way obviously it
Exactly.
finished, that play made everything snowball. So
Yeah.
it was a
Yeah.
really cool moment, and but yeah, so with that, man, like, you're back with all these guys this past weekend. You're being honored. So many, I'm sure, faces that you haven't seen in a long time. Some of them that you might converse with often. I don't know all of your background with them, but how cool was that just to have that? I'm sure a lot of laughs, a lot of smiles. You had all the events
Yeah.
at Baylor. You had the stuff at George's. Like, how was
Yeah.
all of it? Just reminiscing and enjoying
Yeah.
being around those guys again.
It was special. I mean, there was a lot of excitement going into the weekend, and everybody was just ready to see each other and get around each other again. And it was such a unique deal just seeing people, as fathers now, as
Yeah.
in their careers and business, and just meeting the kids and interacting, as a team, but also with all of our families, was just a unique experience. But uh, we were so honored, in knowing that Baylor was bringing us back and gonna celebrate us. And I can't say enough good things about, Coach Wetzel and Jovan and Justin, and so much planning went into this. And we I don't think anybody took it for granted. Everybody was extremely thankful and just excited to get back together. But it was just a surreal thing to look around, and it's like, man, are we back in 2013, 2014 again? Like, some guys
Yeah.
look the same, some guys look a lot different, and I think yeah, there was a couple people that you walk up to, I won't mention who they were, but it's like, oh man, that's such and such. It's just, hey, in 10, 11 years, you can change a little bit. So I
Yeah.
think there was a little bit of that going on. But just an unreal thing to be celebrated and come out at halftime, and to be under the lights in front of all the fans again and be celebrated by Baylor Nation, will be something I'll remember, just like I'll remember my playing career for the rest of my life. I'll remember that celebration and that
Yeah.
that reunion with those guys. And really, I can't say enough good things just about the whole weekend. I mean, lost my voice a little bit, got a little bit of a cold since then. I think I shook enough hands where I had to come down with something from
Nerves.
somebody,
Yeah.
or it's just this crazy weather in Texas. But just talked to a lot of people and caught up with a lot of people, and just really filled my cup up, is what I would say.
Very
Do you
cool.
feel like for the 2013, 2014 teams and, even teams just kind of around that period, do you think it maybe brought all of y'all a lot closer to the current program and what Dave Rand is, building right now?
Absolutely. And then he goes and buys the Magnolia
Yeah.
Suite there for us. And I had to text him almost immediately whenever I realized that he did that. And it wasn't just like a rumor or something. I texted him. I was like, Coach, I just want to speak on behalf of the rest of the guys. I mean, we had a group text of probably 20 or so guys. And everybody was just like, that is incredible, that he would go and do that for us. So I just wanted to let him know that we appreciated him. And we that didn't go unnoticed. And that was a blast too, being in that suite. But I do think that it brought us together. And I did get a tour of the facility on Sunday, and ran into Keaton Thomas. I think he was there watching some film, and I think he was just going to his locker or something like that. Me and Bryce Petty ran into him and chatted with him for a minute. But you could just feel, the energy with those guys, and it's cool to even hear some of them mention it in their post game. Talking about our 13, 14 teams. It's 10, 11 years down the road, and we appreciate that kind of respect from the team. And just, I really think it did bring us all closer in together, and it's exciting just kind of moving forward. I think a lot of guys will be coming back more regularly too. It won't go this long period anymore, and so I think that'll be something that comes out of this, is a lot of guys will start coming back more.
Yeah. So you mentioned the tour of the Fudge facility, and obviously it's brand new. I mean, I don't even know if the doors are probably still pretty smooth and not too loud closing. But was there anything in there that you were like, man, I wish I would have had this whenever I was in school?
I mean, there wasn't much that I wouldn't say that about. I think first walking in, I mean, I just noticed, they made it bigger, like the actual indoor, and then indoor practice facility. So found out they extended that. But if I had to pick one thing out of all the stuff that they had going on there, it was the film like walkthrough monitor that they have in there. And so I think Justin Hoff had said something about it's like the only one in Texas or one of just a couple, and it's like just bizarre that you can walk up and it's like human size screen and you can fit to your alignments and go through walkthroughs and utilize it for those things. And I'm like, I never even thought that would be a thing. And so you can see that as soon as you're walking over kind of the bridge that goes over across funnels from the hallway that has the big mural of Petty and Robert and Corey and all them. And you go over the weight room and you look over there and it's like, what is that ginormous screen on the other side of the weight room? And that's what it is. They've got turf in there and everything. And so it was so well thought out, that whole facility. Every time you turn, it's like, that makes a lot of sense. And you get to the lockers and it's like, I thought that was just like a piece of trim on the door, but no, that thing actually rolls out and it's got a whole ventilation system for their cleats and it's got compartments that you could never even imagine, this isn't a knock to our facility being at the Simpson, it was beautiful. I loved the locker and I was feeling like I was living in royalty, but like to step into there and see what kind of bells and whistles are going on in that facility. I don't see how you are a recruit and you walk in there and don't immediately just want to commit to going to Baylor. So it's an incredible, just world-class facility.
That's great. So I do want to mention, since you've gotten to watch Baylor a little bit this year, I'm not sure how many games you've been to this year or whatnot, but I know coming to this one and kind of seeing this Baylor team turning a corner, I wanted to ask you about the 2012 season a little bit because I've compared it a little bit. I'm not saying it's completely the same because obviously every team is different, but there is some momentum that is getting built right now that was kind of being built in 2012. And then obviously that led into the snowball effect in 2013 and 2014. What do you remember about kind of that 2012 team turning it around? And do you kind of see some similarities as well with this year's team?
Absolutely. Yeah. Coming back to 2012, I mean, I continue to come back to that. And I wish, I was able to make it to some more games, earlier on in the season, but this was actually the first game I was able to come to. But I think when I'm trying to find the best comparison, it's that 2012 season. And with where they are, it's just so oddly familiar and similar to, about the time that we beat K-State in 2012 and them being the number one team and that sort of thing. And for us, as a defense, we were very good. We had a lot of guys that were, they were great athletes. I just think that we were making way too many fundamental errors and mental mistakes. And it just continued to happen again and again. And our lowest moment was definitely that West Virginia game in 2012 when we got 70 plus points scored on us. And it's like, we just weren't learning from our mistakes. And I think we just got sick and tired of losing and sick and tired of making the same mistakes. And for whatever reason, it just finally clicked for that squad. And, our offense was already, I think the number one offense in the country and just scoring a lot of points. And we had to figure things out on defense. So it was, I keep saying, it was the whole give an inch, take a mile. If you are taking a false step at the beginning of a play as a linebacker, that's just enough for, that O lineman to get in front of you and you can't get to your gap. Or, if it's a corner, forgetting what his zone coverage responsibility is on this particular play. That stuff would just happen time and time again. And you can go back to the film and watch it. previous to the K-State game. So to tie this back into this team, obviously you mentioned we went on a run from that point. Like we didn't lose for up until I think we lost to Oklahoma State in 2013, and we were the 4th ranked team in the country on College game day. And it's like we finally got things to click, and you see a lot of that stuff, I feel like, right now. I mean, guys like Matt Jones and Keaton Thomas and Steve Linton, just from the defensive side of the ball, it's like you could tell they're starting to really, work in synergy together, and they're not making those same mistakes that were maybe happening in the beginning of the season. Doesn't mean it's a mistake-free game, but I think that they're putting those pieces together finally, and they're finally able to display the talent that the defense actually has. We've got incredible talent. I think Coach Aranda has done an amazing job with recruiting, and I think that it's awesome because now we're starting to see these guys being highlighted because they're not making those fundamental errors, and that goes into development. And I think I credit so much to our coaching staff with developing me, because there was a lot that I didn't know. Even though not linebacker was a natural position for me, I still didn't know so much about the game. And I was just such an instinctive player that I leaned in on that so much and didn't really understand just the schematics as much as I needed to know. And so just all that to be said, I think it all seems so similar. And if they can keep this going on a run and win these last few games of conference play, go win a bowl game, the sky's the limit for next season. So,
yeah. So obviously you came, that 2012 was your first season at Baylor. You come in, they had the high flying offense, obviously off of Roberts Heisman Trophy. You come in, Nick's the quarterback, but you knew the offense was going to be good, and it was early in the season. How does that correlating to this season and Jake Spavital's offense, and they're clicking now, Sawyer's clicking, everything's working, the run game, pass game, anything you can imagine is working on offense right now. As a defender, how much confidence does that give you? And also motivation does it give you, hey, if we can just get a few more things right each game, the offense can take us where we want to go in a lot of ways. And then if you are all playing at the top of your game, like, do you remember those emotions from your time there of knowing, like, if this offense does what it does, we don't have to be perfect all the time.
Right. Yeah. I always said we just needed to make one more stop than the other team because we knew our offense was always going to go out and score. But I, and to back up, I feel like with Sawyer right now, he's the energy in that offense, and it's clear, and he's confident, and he's just like this commander in chief out there on the field, and it's really cool to see that because there's only so many guys that just have that like it factor and break in those high pressure moments, and we haven't seen a lot of that out of Sawyer, and I think when you see the offense succeeding and gosh, moving the ball like they did this past weekend, running the ball in the trenches, like that was exciting. And from a defensive standpoint, it gives you energy when you're feeding off each other. It all goes into the motivation factor. There's the intangibles about the game of football that you don't realize sometimes that make a bigger impact than I think people understand. So when the offense is firing the way that they are, and the defense is cleaning up a lot of those fundamental mistakes that they were making at the beginning of the season, you're really just seeing a product come together that's like, man, this Spavital offense that we've got in place right now, and spreading guys out but running the ball, it's based on the run still, and it's like, I mean, that is awesome. And then you've got Coach Aranda getting these guys. I love seeing like the pressure packages that he's bringing in, and he'll put them in man coverage. There's a lot of empty formations in just this past game, and you'll see him bring the pressure in those if you go back and watch the tape, you'll see him bring the pressure a lot in those moments, and that was the difference a lot of times. Third and long, and it's an empty set, and Coach Aranda's bringing the heat. And so I just, I think that they're working together really well, the offense and defense, and they're feeding off that energy from each other.
As we know, Dave Aranda took over, full-on defensive coordinator job this offseason and has really tried to implement a lot of things and only had one offseason to do it. What are some of the biggest things that maybe you're seeing from this defense this year compared to last year, maybe the year before, that has caught your eye?
Yeah, I think that he's got these guys feeling just more confident about what they're doing. And I know I keep coming back to confidence, but that's a big part. You can't just skip over confidence. And because I think that's where we were having so many issues was, we weren't confident in that, in making the right plays or making the right key reads and those kind of things. From a schematic standpoint, at the beginning of the season, he didn't really do a ton of blitzing. Actually, he was in a lot of base defense, and he was letting those guys just play football, and they were. I think that, especially in those first couple of games, I know that we got kind of on a rocky little strand of games there, but I think now, as the season, we're into November, they say everyone remembers November. This is the time. If you're going to play good football, you play good football right now. And now you're really seeing Aranda bring in those pressure packages. And we used to call it BTF, blitz the formation. And that was always a super fun signal to see. In you turn to the sideline and you see BTF, that was our go-to blitz from Baylor. And it was based on like the type of formation, and that's why it was called blitz the formation. So it didn't matter what formation they were in, we were going to blitz them. And it was always a fun time. So I know that these guys are enjoying these line movements and these twisting these twists that they're running with the D line movements, and coming off the edge from a linebacker standpoint. All of it has been a really fun thing to see. But I think it still just comes back to the confidence that these guys have, and it has to start with the coach. I mean, Coach Aranda has really gotten these guys prepared.
Yeah, so you are working with Baylor Plus closely this year and doing some film breakdown. And so if you're not a subscriber to Baylor Plus and you're listening to this, make sure you go on there so you can watch Eddie break this film down. Is there any play that you just like this year specifically that you've watched and that you had a fun time breaking down, or you're wanting to break down from the TCU game? I don't know exactly what your schedule is, but is there anything that just really stood out that you enjoyed watching and dissecting from this defense?
Yeah. I mean, we actually filmed that this morning. And so from the film room stuff, like I've actually really enjoyed doing this. And I think, or doing the film study stuff again and jumping back into X's and O's. And, I haven't been a coach. I mean, I did a little bit of some linebacker training and that kind of thing, just to kind of stay in the game. But it's definitely been a change of pace for me, and jumping into evaluating film again, and it's gotten me excited. It's like, man, maybe I should have jumped into the coaching stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it's been a lot of fun. And we one play that we hit on this week was it was a big sack I think it was the beginning of the second half by Cooper Lands.
Yeah.
And so and that was exactly what I'm talking about as far as what Coach Aranda's been doing is blitzing. When you're out, you can outnumber those guys because that's 6-on-5 with those empty formations. They would spread those receivers out so far, and you've got the 5 alignment, our 5 defense alignment, and then we're bringing or 4 defense linemen and bringing 2 linebackers off the edge. And it just freed things up for Cooper, and just a big play there for just the beginning of we came into that second half being down. They got those points before the end of the half, and then we had to come out strong in that first part of the second half, and setting the tone really for the rest of the game. So that's one that I can think of right now that really stuck out to me, was just it was a huge sack for, I think, a loss of like 6 or 7 yards. So I really think, again, these guys are really coming around, and we're starting to really see this puzzle be put together, and it's been a lot of fun to watch.
Obviously, Mike Singletary was like the top guy in Baylor history at the linebacker position. But I got to tell you, you know, since you graduated, Baylor has had just outstanding linebackers, like one after another. I'm not sure that they get enough credit when you look at Taylor Young, Clay Johnston, Terrell Bernard, this year's team with Matt Jones and Keaton. How cool is it that you kind of see these guys, you know, after you and Bryce, of course, and seeing just kind of this tradition at the linebacker position really take off?
Man, it's been so fun to watch. It's like there's literally been no drop off. All these guys are playmakers, and you know every single one of the guys that you mentioned, they're all playmakers. And I remember being in like film room with T Young back in the day, and I knew that he was going to be a baller. And you know he wasn't the tallest, but people weren't seeing him like I was in practice, and it's just really it's something special that I feel like is all of a sudden turned into this tradition where we've got really good linebacker play, and those are the playmakers, and you know a lot of the defenses since then too that you know coaching staffs have implemented. It structures around that position really well, but you still got to play the position. You still got to make the plays. You still got to put the foot in the ground and go make something happen. And we've just had countless guys, and you know, I love watching Terrell Bernard right now, you know, with the Bills, and seeing what he's been able to do over the last few years, being there with them. And you know, I think at some point we got to be mentioned for LBU, I think. But we used to break out as LBs back in 2013, even as LBU, you know, but that wasn't catching any steam.
Yeah. No, that's really cool, Eddie. Man, we really appreciate you hopping on and joining us. And as I mentioned, any Baylor fans, you want to hear more from Eddie, go over to Baylor Plus, subscribe, and listen to him each week. It sounds like you'll have a fun one this week from TCU games. So, Grayson, any final question before we close this up?
Just really happy y'all had such a good time, and really appreciate you coming on, Eddie, and just talking some football with us.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having us and all that you do for Baylor Nation, man. It's awesome watching your guys' stuff each week.
All right, appreciate it. Baylor fans, have a great Thursday, and Grace and I will talk with you tomorrow. Sick 'em Bears.
Sick 'em.